Having coached and advised people on their finances for over 6 years, one thing that I've often heard from people across the ages is uh, I feel like I'm behind. I feel like I'm playing catch up. Now, I've heard this from people in their 60s, and you might think, hey, that makes sense. That's normal. But I've also heard it from someone as young as his late 20s. So if this is something that you felt, just know that you're not alone. It's a universal feeling. And also know that this video is going to be for you because it's going to help you stop the hustle, stop the rushing, and start compounding and making real progress in your financial plan. If we haven't met, my name is Barakat Khalili. I'm a financial advisor in the Sacramento area, and I work with Kaiser employees, helping them to simplify money, get unstuck, and build a retirement plan on their terms. Now, I want to show you a famous photo from an incident that occurred in 1895 in Paris. This is a train that pulled into the Paris's Montparnasse station and crashed through the buffer stop, burst through the wall, and then nosedived into the street below. What happened was the engineer had left the previous stop, the previous station behind schedule and tried to make up for lost time by going even faster than he normally does. And it turned out to be, not safe. Well, when he came into the station, the brakes underperformed. The safeguard wasn't applied in time, and we see what happens. A speed without safeguards leads to disaster. And that's our metaphor for today. When we feel like we're behind, we want to slam on the throttle. We want to work more. We want to chase hot investments. We want to make big, risky moves. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to work through a personal principle of mine called slow down to speed up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 6 ways that you can slow down in a way that will speed up your financial progress exponentially. So this first area of slowing down that I want to talk about has to do with your emergency buffer. The fastest way people blow up their retirement, it's not by making bad investments, it's by rating them. What I mean by that is when there's no cash cushion, every flat tire, every copay, every appliance that dies on you turns into a just this once 401k withdrawal or a new extra debt that you take on to handle that emergency. There was a TIA study from 2023 also that focused on the retirement readiness among healthcare workers specifically. And what they found was that those who were in debt, especially with student loan debt, were more likely to take out a hardship withdrawal or a loan from their 401k because they tended to not have much in the way of emergency savings. And so that emergency fund is going to be really important in helping you continue to make progress without slowing down and backtracking. And so the solution here is we want to park $1,000 to $2,500 at the minimum as a kind of starter emergency fund if you don't have anything in place, and then before we eventually build that up to a much more substantial emergency fund. But the goal here is to just have at least a cushion or a buffer to have in place just in case something happens. And normally, when it comes to unexpected expenses, the one thing that we know about them is that you can expect it to happen. Now, the second way we're going to talk about slowing down has to do with protecting your financial plan. One event can erase all of your financial progress. And why is that? Because of things like outdated beneficiaries, missing important insurance coverage, that's not in place, not having a power of attorney. And when you get into these kinds of situations, it can force fire sale decisions and derail your financial progress. So what's the solution here? Well, a couple of things. We want to make sure those beneficiary designations on your account are up to date. We want to make sure that we got the right insurance coverage in place, especially life insurance, long-term disability. And then we also want to make sure we have at least a simple will in place or a power of attorney, healthcare directives, so that when those kind of crisis moments happen, you don't have to worry about making rash decisions, big decisions with little time and under a lot of emotional stress and pressure. So safety first, then speed. Okay, now the third area we're going to talk about slowing down, it has to do with your consumer debt. And this is everything that's not a mortgage. If you want to build wealth faster, you're going to have to start by protecting your primary engine, which is your income. That is, your income is your main wealth building tool, and you can't use it to build wealth if it's being soaked up with debt payments. Debt doesn't just cost interest, it's hijacking your cash flow. And that's going to make it impossible for you to make progress. Even earners get caught, right? Because we tend to assume more income must mean you have more cash flow, but that's not the case. In fact, about 40% of households that make over $200,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. So, going back to that TIA study I mentioned earlier from 2023, it also found that those healthcare workers who have debt, especially student loan debt, a lot of times were not making the retirement contributions that they wanted to, or saving towards other goals that they wanted to, because of the payments. That is, once the payments were taken care of, there wasn't really much room left over to save for those other goals. And so this most important area where you can slow down to speed up is going to involve creating extra cash flow today in the short term to knock off all of that consumer debt. And the way you're going to do it is you're going to attack them in order from the smallest debt down to the largest debt. And once you have that knocked out, now you have more cash available to put towards your retirement, to put towards the kids' college fund, or extra principal payments on your mortgage. So now and this is going to be one of the most powerful ways where taking the time today to do that, especially the younger you are, is going to set you up for years of patiently compounding your wealth, and potentially even bringing your retirement date a lot sooner than otherwise would be the case. So now we come to the fourth area, which is order of contributions. The thing here is waiting for a bigger paycheck later on to get started, to really start making progress, is how years of wealth building and compounding disappear. And the problem is starting small today beats starting bigger later. And unfortunately, a lot of times we tell ourselves, I'll get started once everything is all, once the conditions are ideal, once I get things together. And that's how someday basically turns into never. Delays cost more than just modest contributions, because later on you're going to be scrambling to try to catch up. And it's going to be, you're not going to be able to get back those years that you've lost. In fact, a JP Morgan study from 2025 showed an interesting graphic where they showed two scenarios. One with a worker who was putting 10% towards retirement every year from day one, and then another worker that started at 3%, but then every year increased that until they got to 10%, and then continued on from there. The interesting finding was that at the end of 40 years, with the same performance, same rate of return, they both had virtually the same amount of money. And so what that shows is that getting started today is better than getting it right and getting it perfect right away. Get started, even if it's not perfect, and then just continue improving. And it's just as good as if you started and had the perfect plan in place from the get-go. It reminds me of the film Ticket to Paradise with George Clooney and Julia Roberts, where her character has this great line that she mentions a couple of times in the film that talks about the importance of not delaying something that you know is good and that you enjoy, that you want, until later, because you just think for whatever reason you can't do it.
I save the good stuff for later.
And now we come to the fifth area where we can slow down in terms of simplifying investing. Complex portfolios feel smart until they slow you down. And the reason why is because more funds, more tinkering just leads to more errors, and it leads to just more drag. When you're catching up, when you feel like you're catching up, decision friction is the enemy. In fact, research has even shown that women tend to do better than men when it comes to their investment performance, because women are just better wired for a long-term mentality and mindset, which is what you need to be successful when it comes to investing. That is, women just put their money in their investments and then they leave them alone. Now, of course, they keep adding to that, of course, consistently. And so that's why they tend to do better. Whereas men are more likely to actively trade more frequently. And what that does is it just creates more fees and expenses. And of course, when they miss opportunities to time their market, they just erode their performance. So the goal here is, depending on the stage of life you're in, whether you're a builder, whether you're in transition towards retirement, or whether you're retired, find the right investment strategy for that stage of life you're in, and then invest in the portfolio that will accomplish that goal in the most simplified, efficient way, and then avoid the news and don't tinker with it and don't get impatient. and just keep contributing if you're a builder, and stick with that, or continue to rebalance periodically as needed. But fewer moving parts here, less drag, more progress. So now we come to the final section, number 6 here, cadence and reviews. The idea here is plans don't crash from one big mistake, they drift. And it turns out the only thing you need to do to drift is nothing. Without checkpoints, small misses pile up into big gaps. And this can look like stale beneficiary designations, missed increases in your contributions, forgotten debts, leakage in your budget, not looking at your taxes. Just like your car, your financial plan needs regular maintenance, right? And so you can put in the work to put a plan in place, but if you don't come back to that regularly, then you're going to just eventually drift. And it's not just important to make sure you have those checkpoints and you go back and review, but you also want to automate that process as well. Some of my clients, for example, there's a married couple I work with where they like to meet every couple of weeks around their paycheck and have a quick little budget meeting. You can also meet monthly, quarterly, or at least set aside that time. One thing that I often do with my business and with my business planning is I put that on my calendar. I set an appointment every first Saturday or every quarter to set aside that time. And so now I know that that's going to come, and I don't have to worry about forgetting that and not setting aside the time to review. And remember, what you measure can get improved. You can't manage what you don't measure. So taking the time to review, see your progress is definitely going to also help you see the progress that you're making, the success that you're getting. And when you see that traction, that can really help to build the momentum. Because when you look back, you see where you've come from. That I've seen with a lot of clients is enough to kind of show them that, hey, I am actually moving in the right direction. And it makes it a little bit easier for you to be more patient and to continue doing the things that are working and not doing the things that are not working. So 6 areas here. Slow down, speed up, because remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Don't focus on speed, focus on progress. Okay, so before you go, I'm all about transformation and results. If you want different results, you got to take different actions, but you don't want to overwhelm yourself too. Learn a little, do a little. So the main thing that I want you to take away from this is pick one area to focus on and start taking action on it. Now, my suggested order of operations would be start with the debt, if you have that, then work on your emergency fund, then work on the estate planning, to the part about protecting your plan, then focus on your retirement contributions, and then the cadence and reviews, and setting in a close that feedback loop and review your progress. You might also want to sit down and talk with someone about your specific situation. Meet with a financial advisor. Take a look at the link in the description below. You can always schedule a no-cost call with me, and then we can come up with your personalized action plan that you'll start working on and getting into place today. And if you're a Kaiser employee in your 40s and you're looking for where do I get started? There's a video here that I recorded that gives you 10 smart moves as part of your 40s retirement playbook for 2026.